Spaces dropped a little late on another edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Thursday. Taking your Thursday thoughts. Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/Soccer Down Here. Also via email, soccerdownhere@gmail. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. Already getting yelled at in the Twitch pitch. My bad. We try to do something a little different this morning and order some Panera for breakfast. And of course, they get here right at 9 o'clock. Not before, so I could have taken care of it. Not after, where I could have said, hey, John, why don't you tell everybody about something for 2-3 minutes? No, right at 9 o'clock. So
right at 9 o'clock.
My smoothie is here. Ashley has her breakfast. We are all good to go. Gwen let everybody know that the Panera was here.
Yes.
And we are good to go. They did not have the broccoli and cheese quiche ragamuffin. They were out this morning. So I just went with a smoothie, a strawberry and banana smoothie. It's not that exciting. Excellent. It's very good, though. It's very tasty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We dig the smoothie every once in a while.
Yeah, I like a good smoothie from time to time. What else is going on this morning, John?
Interesting news that affects cable systems and viewing habits. We were talking about Fox Sports, and they now apparently have a new partner and will be getting a new name. I had initially thought that Sinclair Broadcasting, once they had bought the regional sports networks from Disney as a part of the rebrand, would stick their stadium property, their digital property, as the lead name for the new network system, where it would be something along the lines of Stadium Sports South, Stadium Sports Southeast, Stadium Sports, pick your region, what have you.
You were highly convinced of that, yeah.
I was, and because it was all of that corporate synergy and all that kind of stuff.
No, it made sense. That was what seemed like the play was going to be.
But when you can bring money in the door in this current dynamic, we now have a relationship between Sinclair Broadcast Group and Bally. Not quite the pinball folks, but the corporation that believes in gaming. And here is how Sinclair is phrasing the relationship.
Okay.
They're announcing with Bally's corporation a transformational partnership that will change the game.
Good wording.
When it comes to, yes, this is good PR word here. When it comes to the fast-growing U.S. sports betting and iGaming market, Bally's will integrate, once again, another good verb here, integrate content into many of Sinclair's properties, including our local TV stations, regional sports networks, Stir, whatever that is, the Tennis Channel, and Stadium, creating unrivaled sports gamification. That's their word.
That's been
a real word.
No, that's a real word. That's been a word in a bunch of different industries, but that's been a word that's been one of those buzzwords for a good 6 to 8 years. Soccer for Good OG, if she's hanging out, she knows how I love the buzzwords. Just absolutely adore the buzzwords and how great they are and how they don't get overused at all. Or maybe used inappropriately at times. No, they're buzzwords. They're special, and they are wonderful.
Yes. So they're going to be creating unrivaled sports gamification content on a national scale.
See, this could actually be, but the thing is about using gamification here, that could actually be an appropriate usage of it because you're dealing with a gaming company. And you have sports, and how are you going to do it? I'm interested. I'm on board so far. I'm liking all of this at the moment. Synergy, bandwidth, yes, there's lots of that going around, Pacine.
Yes. So the partnership with Sinclair, along with Bally's acquisition of the Bet.Works iGaming platform, will position Bally's to capture a significant share of the U.S. sports betting and iGaming market.
They need to. They've fallen behind a little bit. When I saw Bally's, I was kind of like, okay. They seemed a little bit lower down the scale. Feels like a good move. Okay, I'm still on board.
So now here's the ending from Sinclair Broadcast Group. Also in 2021, the 21 Fox regional sports networks will be rebranded using the Bally name.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, that's the announcement. The announcement
bury
is
the lead.
Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, it's a big partnership, but the announcement is that they're not Fox Sports, and also there was some reporting that they had to stop using the Fox Sports name because they have nothing to do with Fox anymore. So they had to get away from it, and Stadium was probably the fallback. So now they've got what they wanted to get, and they got some money out of it. So dig it. I like that. Now the question, as Ricky Ricardo puts in the Twitch pitch, now that they have another revenue source, now that they've got everything sorted out the way they want, do they go back to the table and get the stuff sorted out? I think they do, because now they're going to want – because now everything's changed. Before, they just owned it. They were trying to make as much money as they could, period, full stop. Now they've got a partner that they got to satisfy. They probably have to satisfy a certain number of households. They probably have to satisfy a certain amount of engagement. You can't get engagement if you're not in places. So, yeah, I think now they go back to the table. They get it sorted out. My bold prediction of the morning. And it's over there. Great.
There you go.
My bold prediction of the morning is that you will have, if it's not called Bally's Sports South or Bally's South or whatever that is, whatever the name is, you will have it on all of the major streaming services by the time the NBA season starts in about a month.
Yeah.
It'll be back there for the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah. The gut reaction that I had is instead of Stadium Sports South, Stadium Sports Southeast, it's going to end up being Bally's Sports whatever. That's my gut.
It could be like Stadium, Bally Stadium. I mean, there's a lot of different ways they could do it.
Presented by Bally's, whatever, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go presented because that doesn't help them as much. But whatever they brand it to, Bally's will be included. And the most important thing is you will not have NBA teams affected by this because they're not going to allow that to happen. NHL is going to start in January. Is that right?
Yeah.
So NBA, they'll have it in place December 22nd. It'll be there by then, and it'll be there for hockey because those are two major properties. And sadly, for MLS, they didn't look at MLS as major of a property. I don't think Sinclair helped themselves with this negotiation at all, but this is how it goes sometimes. So now they're going to be motivated to get back on board. They will find whatever number they have to hit, and there you go.
Yeah, so NHL is set to come back New Year's Day with, I guess, Winter Classic kind of stuff, and so it'll be in short order. The basketball season will start, NHL season will start, and in theory, you'd like to have everything lined up by then.
You got to have it for baseball for spring training as well. So, but the most important one, I think, first is basketball.
Yep.
So it'll be back in a month, and it'll be fine for next season, and there you go.
Yep. So that was the regional sports business daily news down here that we had this morning.
Ragamuffin wants to know if there's going to be a Bally's Total Fitness channel. Probably a show that'll be on all their channels. They won't do a separate channel, but they'll have a Bally's Total Fitness show.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
I mean, you'd probably like early in the morning or something like that. Like the old workout shows that we used to have, like morning stretch.
You're going
and
to
like that.
Denise Austin in the 80s again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Joni Gregan's morning stretch, all those kinds of things. You'd probably have Bally's Total Fitness right there early in the morning. All right, everybody, it's time to wake up. Right? It's time for Bally's Total Fitness. And
it's not 1983. Abby with a question for you about NHL getting started. Outdoor games, safer for fans. Are they going to do more of that, or are they just doing like the kickoff Winter Classic thing and that's it?
That's the good question right now. I'm digging up to see what the plans are. And I thought that there was going to be the Winter Classic and trying to figure out, okay, what it was going to be like for, the entry draft getting pushed back. What does it mean for the Winter Classic? And Gary Bettman hadn't elaborated right now. It's supposed to be St. Louis and Minnesota at Target Field. That was the initial idea. And waiting to see what the deal is with that.
So the NHL is still kind of figuring this thing out, huh? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. We have an announcement, and hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to these folks here soon. It has come up on the Twitch pitch, and I'm actually trying to pull it up so I can show you guys on the Twitch pitch. I think it might prove to be a little too difficult, but hey, we're going to give it a shot because we're trying to learn new things, right?
Yep.
Let's see. It doesn't want to work there. Here we go. So there's going to be a new NPSL team in Boone, North Carolina.
Yep.
And they are, in some ways, replacing the Appalachian State program. Correct?
In some ways.
Because that program went away.
Yep.
And they came out with a pretty good logo. I'm not going to lie. I kind of dig it. I kind of want it on a T-shirt. I'm turning into John, and it's scaring me. This is what the Appalachian FC logo looks like, if you can see on Twitch. Pretty cool. Okay. I'm guessing that is Bigfoot. I'm assuming. I mean,
something of that vein.
I'm assuming that is Bigfoot. Okay, cool. I'm in. I'm intrigued. I want to see this. I like it. Sam Williamson likes it. Jason Nix is a fan of Boone, so digging it. Katie Weaver likes it. Is it better than the Chicago Fire logo? I think that's a yes.
Oh yeah.
I think that's definitely a yes.
Yes.
And they lost all sound, so let's go back. Now you can hear me. Sorry about that. Sorry. See, I'm learning new things, and I screwed it up. Welcome to Thursday. That is the Appalachian State logo, Appalachian Football Club logo, replacing Appalachian State soccer, and you have Appalachian State, formerly college soccer people, running this team.
Jason O'Keefe, former Appalachian State head coach, 919 Sports Management, PMI, combined with top Boone business owners, community, and soccer leaders, according to Front Row Soccer.
I like it. So we'll be reaching out. Hopefully we'll have a 1v1 with them pretty soon. We normally get the new teams in the region, so stay tuned for that. John will be efforting, I am assuming.
Yes, we are already in conversations.
Already efforting.
Already efforting.
I like it.
The timeline to get a 1v1, probably early next week.
I like it. I think Michael Hitchcock is behind it, who started the Fort Worth Vaqueros, a couple other teams in the NPSL. Was also involved here with the Atlanta Silverbacks for a while and with FC Dallas. So good leadership behind this club. I'm very intrigued. J-Dub asks, will they play a Sasquatch call when they score?
Or something Wookiee-based, maybe? What is a Sasquatch call, anyway?
Wookiees and Sasquatches are like completely different things, right? I mean,
that's my guess.
One's real and one's not, or
True,
both aren't
but,
real, or
you're
one's
sitting there and you're wondering.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm very intrigued. Yes, Appalachian State did kill Michigan, and my sound burned. That is correct. Good job. Jack Links better be the sponsor. That's really good, Sam.
Yeah,
that is really, really good. Jason Nix is saying both are made up. So I don't know. You guys tell me. I mean, people say they're real. I don't know. I'm just saying. Lots of different things of different places today to jump into. Let's get into FIFA, and I think doing some good things.
Yep.
So, FIFA is enacting new rules to protect female players' maternity rights. So, governing body is prepared to mandate that clubs allow at least 14 weeks of maternity leave, paid at a minimum 2/3 of a player's full salary. The national bodies can insist on even more generous terms. That's going to be the minimum that FIFA will mandate. FIFA said her club will be under an obligation to reintegrate her into football activity and provide adequate ongoing medical support. Any club that ends a player's contract for becoming pregnant faces having to pay compensation and a fine and being banned from the transfer market for 1 year. Emilio Garcia, who's the chief legal officer at FIFA, the idea is to protect female players before, during, and after childbirth. It's a big step that FIFA is trying to make in terms of professionalizing women's soccer, making sure there's more investment by elite clubs in having a women's team. This should be approved by the FIFA Council next month, would take effect January 1, so that's fast, that's good. Garcia wants to get ahead of this. He said there have not been contract disputes around the situation in the past. They're trying to get out in front of it. He said, we think these rules are part of common sense. The move follows International Labor Organization standards on compensating maternity leave. And one other element to it, at least 8 weeks of the 14-week minimum maternity leave must be after the player gives birth.
Cool.
FIFA does a lot of things that get the side eye around here, and yes, they have a lot to overcome in that regard. This is a very, very good move. A very, very good move by FIFA. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, and I like the guidelines that they've set, and the importance of also post childbirth and understanding what that time frame means to a family and what you're supposed to do to get back family time with all the effort that was put in and going through the other side and growing the family after childbirth. Very, very cool stuff.
Good job. FIFA, you get absolute kudos. Still got some other things to work on. Total kudos for FIFA on this one, and I like that they're getting it done quick.
Yeah.
Other things kind of around the world to hop into. We talked about Nations League a lot yesterday. Kind of went the way that we expected it to go. The big thing coming out of these rounds of games are the World Cup qualifying draw pots. And this will be the first time in Europe all the traditional powerhouses will be separated. So they'll be in pot 1. Belgium, France, England, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Croatia, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands. They will each be in separate groups. First time France has been seeded in 12 years. Italy's back to the top seeds after failing to qualify last time around. The Nations League, some people like it, some people don't. It does have an impact on this side. So, I mean, you look at pot 1, that's who feels like they probably should be in pot 1. Pot 2, Switzerland, Wales, Poland, Sweden, Austria, Ukraine, Serbia, Turkey, Slovakia, Romania. Definitely feels a step down from pot 1.
Yep.
I don't know who I'd be really afraid of there.
Yeah.
That feels reasonable. Switzerland, I mean, is the closest one, I think, and they're probably the one that would worry you the most. Pot 3, you want to get Iceland in your group because you're going to win like England did yesterday. I mean, you're going to demolish them because they're not as good as they used to be, and everybody's figured that out.
Yep.
Finland might be a little bit of a wild card in pot 3. Norway, potentially. Ireland and Northern Ireland are in there. Scotland is in pot 3. Hungary's in pot 3. Russia, Czech Republic, Greece. Pot 4. Is there anybody in pot 4 you're afraid of?
No.
Bosnia and Herzegovina, maybe. Slovenia's fallen off a little bit. You've got North Macedonia in there. You've got Montenegro. You've got Luxembourg. You've got Georgia, Belarus, Israel, Bulgaria, Albania, and then you're down to the minnows. So it feels like the way it should be. I mean, if you were doing it on paper and said, these are who we think are the best, this is who's next, it worked out that way. So you're going to have 5 groups of 6, 5 groups of 5. Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, your final 4 for the Nations League, will go into the groups of 5. That way the October dates in 21 are free for the semifinals and final of Nations League. That makes sense. That's good construction. 13 countries go. So the top 10 group winners go. The 10 runners-up go into the playoffs. The 2 best UEFA Nations League group winners who do not finish in the top 2 will also go into the playoffs. So, again, a little bit of boost to the Nations League. Then the 12 teams split into 3 paths, forming 2 semifinals and a final. That's a little different than it's been in the past. So you win the group, you go. If you're second, you go into a playoff, and then the best 2 Nations League group winners who didn't get into that playoff or already qualify, they jump into the playoff. So there you go. That's the European qualifying process. And now we know the groups, and they make total sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at pot two, and I was looking at Ukraine as being a bit of a troublemaker,
Maybe.
just because of having to go and the road game being
Turkey could be too.
a place. Yeah, Turkey could be as well. But yeah, Switzerland, Ukraine, Turkey. What do you think Russia thinks of being in pot three instead of pot two, where Ukraine's in pot two?
They didn't do good enough to get to pot two, so they really can't think too much about it. It wasn't done by a vote. I mean, this is by results. So. Yeah. Couple shouts for teams to keep an eye on. Nix is saying watch out for Poland. Bernd is saying watch out for Bosnia and Herzegovina and Norway. So those are your three wild cards from the Twitch pitch to keep an eye on. Other bits of news around the world. We're going to get into the Lionel Messi Barcelona new spat. Yay. The Asian Champions League is back underway. The eastern half of the championship started yesterday. Shanghai Shenhua won 2-1 over Perth Glory from Australia. That will continue for about 2-3 weeks. Germany, there's still talk about Yogi Löw maybe quitting, although I don't know if he's going to. And Hansi Flick's name has come up. He was an assistant. I don't think he's leaving Bayern. That feels like fantasy land to me, but okay.
Yep.
The big news of the morning is Pep Guardiola signing a new 2-year deal. So the idea of Mauricio Pochettino going to Manchester City, not going to happen. Maybe the biggest news of the morning is happening in a courtroom in London. The Wagatha Christie court case. I didn't even know this was going to a court case. This is amazing.
I didn't either.
If you remember, Wayne Rooney and Jamie Vardy's wives had a bit of a spat, since we're having spats today. They had a bit of a spat on your social media platforms. Rebecca Vardy is suing Colleen Rooney for libel. Colleen Rooney, posted on Twitter and Instagram that she had basically organized a sting operation, and it actually made a lot of sense the way she did it. Yeah. If she's not telling the truth with how she did it, okay, but what she said made a whole lot of sense.
Law and Order UK.
This is way beyond Law and Order. This is better than that. So Rooney says she had blocked all of her friends from viewing her private Instagram account, except for the one person that she suspected was giving stories to a 3-letter tabloid that we don't talk about. So she blocked everybody else except for this one person she thought was feeding the tabloids. She posted a series of fake stories over a 5-month period that all found their way into the tabloid. She concluded the message by saying, I have saved and screenshotted all the original stories, which clearly show just one person has viewed them. It's... ...
Rebecca Vardy.
Rebecca Vardy's account. She didn't say Rebecca Vardy. She said Rebecca Vardy's account. That's the only one who had viewed these fake stories. So then it became known as the Wagatha Christie saga, and this is where we're at. It's actually in a courtroom today. It's amazing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the libel is here. She didn't say it was Rebecca Vardy. She said it was Rebecca Vardy's account. So she left open the door that it could have been a publicist. It could have been, I don't know how many people Rebecca Vardy has in her team. But yes, Katie says that was one of her favorite soccer stories from last year. It was amazing. I'm really impressed at the sting operation.
Yeah.
Because, that makes total logical sense when you're trying to go through, like, okay, how could you figure out who is feeding the stories from your private feed? Block everybody except for the one person.
Your number one suspect, you block everybody but that individual.
Yeah, because they don't know that everybody else is blocked. The detective work is top-notch, Jason Nix. I am really impressed by this. So it's in the courts right now. We'll see where it goes. I don't know what Rebecca Vardy's going to get out of this. I don't know. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe we'll find out there's more turns. There's no satisfaction because her account was the only one who saw these stories, and then they made their way to the tabloid. So somebody was involved.
I was thinking Colleen Rooney would get satisfaction out of the whole thing.
She's getting sued. How's she getting satisfaction? She got sued.
Oh, goodness gracious.
She got sued. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. Talking about Nations League and people who like it, Roberto Martinez likes it. He said, This is only the second edition, but when you look at the teams in the Final Four, this has quickly become a prestigious competition. He manages Belgium, and Belgium did really well. The top four is pretty good. Yeah, what are you complaining about?
No, just what are you going to say? I mean, of course you're going to say those kinds of things.
No, I mean, he's absolutely going to say that, but you ended up with Belgium, you ended up with France, you ended up with Italy, you ended up with Spain. Are those the 4 best teams in Europe right now?
Yeah.
It's hard to argue they're not. Right. I mean, maybe Portugal, maybe England are in the conversation. No, I think those are the 4 best. Those are the 4 that got there. That worked, and it was good for Belgium. They get in. They were probably going to be in that top pot anyway, but this just secures it. It gives Belgium an opportunity to win a European trophy. I think it's good. I think it can be good. I think the thing that UEFA has to sort out, because that element, yes, it gives more teams chances to win trophies. It's good for your seeding for things. It's competitive games rather than friendlies. Those things are really good. Right now, it's extra games in a period of time where you can't really afford to play extra games. And that's the issue at the moment. When the Nations League concept started, and CONCACAF did one too, South America doesn't really need to because they play so many World Cup qualifiers. They're good. I don't know about Asia and Africa and what they'll do. I will always vote for games that have something attached to them rather than friendlies. I could care less about friendlies. So that part's an upgrade. Just, I don't know how you fit everything into the calendar long term, and that's going to be the question. How can you find the balance? That's my worry about it. But rather than playing friendlies in these windows, doing this, I'm for that. I just wonder if maybe you need to cut back the number of windows you have for international play. But that's a big-term picture question because, look, right now with COVID and everything going on, everybody's scrambling to figure things out. So, Switzerland is going to get a bailout from the Swiss government for sports. Soccer will be included. But there are conditions attached to it. 20% pay cuts from top players and coaches in return for the aid. Cannot cut out your youth and your women's setups. You have to maintain those. And the grants that they will give are designed to replace up to 2/3 of lost revenue. And this would cover soccer, this would cover ice hockey, this would cover other sports clubs. They've made it clear that they don't want these sports clubs to struggle. They want them to stay afloat, and they understand the loss of revenue with no fans in the stands. The conditions are fair, I think. I don't have a problem with those. If you're going to get the grant, then you have to meet certain things. That's pretty typical for any kind of grant or loan or whatever. So I'm okay with that. All right, we're a little past the time, but that's okay. We have a new segment. It needs a name. We have a working title. John, what is the working title of your segment?
Well, I said...
what is the working title of your segment?
Hey, I saw this. That's what I said.
I don't know if I like you dancing during the opening to the segment, but okay.
You want to call what I'm doing dancing?
I don't know what else to call it. So, hit the segment name.
Hey, I saw this.
Hey, John saw this.
Hey, John saw this. And we do have some other ideas. Nick and Jared have come up with some good stuff as well. But it is the segment with a working title.
It is the segment with a working title. Hey, John saw this.
Hey, John saw this. So, in The Guardian, Graham Ruthven wrote a column. And the title of the column is, Has Ted Lasso Doomed American Managers to Yet More Mockery? Subheading. U.S. players are winning more respect on the pitch, but Apple TV's recent comedy shows the ridicule reserved for their coaching counterparts is still alive and well. So part of what Ruthven posits here has to do with the series. And he goes back and he says it's impossible to watch Ted Lasso and not think of Bob Bradley. Ooh. When Bradley took over at Swansea in October 2016, he became the first American to manage a Premier League club. Of course, Bradley's time in South Wales was a disaster. He lasted just 11 games, making his tenure the shortest in Premier League history. There was more than enough in Bradley's dismal results and performances to cross-examine him on. Yet so many of the questions posed of the American concerned the way he talked. His use of terms like PK and road game. Long after his exit, Sky Sports' Saturday morning show continued a segment called Brad Bobley's Soccer Camp, in which the jokes are largely the same as the ones played for laughs in Ted Lasso, albeit to an even more outrageous extent. And so the Ruthven column continues, and his ending paragraphs. Says you have to go a long way down the European pyramid to find more American coaches making an impression. Joe Enix in German's third division, Mike Keeney, who's now in the Finnish Veikkausliiga, coached a number of clubs in the country, Brian Klarhout in the Swedish second division, Dennis Lukens in Ukrainian second tier. By the nature of there being fewer jobs for managers than players, American coaches may find they never flood the European market and the same American players have in recent times. So, my question is, he says, nonetheless, American soccer's greatest battle has always been against perception, and Ted Lasso, no matter how bingeable a show it may be, makes this battle that little bit harder. My questions this morning, after having seen this from Graham Ruthven, is Graham Ruthven reading too much into a television series, first and foremost? And aside from that, if you take the TV series aside, put Ted Lasso to the side for a second, what will it take for another American manager to roam the touchline in the higher divisions of English soccer, not just the Premier League, because obviously we know there are only 20 jobs of those. Mm-hmm. What will it take for an American manager to be on the touchline in the upper divisions of English soccer again?
Let's start with the second part. So what will it take? It will take an ownership group and probably a director of soccer who are not going to listen to noted soccer experts, Soccer AM, yes, and whatever other funny, let's make fun of the Americans talking soccer. Hi, we're here. We do it. It's real. It'll take somebody thinking that way. So that can happen. That part I'm not too worried about. I mean, people, I guess they were making fun of Bob Bradley saying PK for a penalty.
Yeah.
Oh, no. And road game, it's the same people who get hung up on if you call a match a game, and if you call it a game, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Look, that happens here in the U.S. too. Let's not fool ourselves, because I've watched it happen. I've been at the radio station when somebody has said a term that is maybe Americanized, and I've watched the text line light up from people. I've watched how people get treated when they do that. So that happens in this country. Is it going to happen in England? Yeah. I wonder if it happens the same in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, etc. Italy, we've talked about this with Nick before on soccer over there. Italy, there's a bit of a anti-everybody mentality with soccer. It's not just Americans, so I get that. Germany, you've seen Americans maybe embraced as players more than anywhere else over the years. I think you'll see Jesse Marsch in the Bundesliga soon, so maybe that changes it. Does that change it in England? I don't know. So the first part, it's going to take somebody to go outside their comfort zone. It's going to take somebody to go further. Now, Ragamuffin's having a joke talking about Hugh Douglas at 92.9. I will tell you this, Ragamuffin. I love when Hugh asks me questions, because Hugh will make me think more than a lot of just regular what's going on with the team, this or that. He'll ask something from his perspective, which is a former NFL player, he wants to know. He wants to learn. I don't care if he uses game instead of match. I could care less. If that's our bar, that we use game or PK or some other term, jersey or field instead of pitch. I mean, if we're getting to that degree, and American soccer does that to itself, it's never going to grow. And then we can't complain about the English making fun of Bob Bradley. I mean, they did a segment on Soccer AM called Brad Bobley's Soccer Camp.
Yep.
Which was basically like making fun of the same stuff that Ted Lasso makes fun of. I'm not asking a general sports person, because England doesn't have, I mean, let's watch the English call a basketball game if we want to do that. If we call an American football game. Like, if we want to go down that road, they're going to struggle with that, and they're going to use some terminology that might not be correct. They might say nil instead of 0, and oh my gosh, let's riot. Here, it's goofy the other way, because if you start looking at what things are called in South America, in Mexico, in other languages other than just English, you're going to find all kinds of different terminology. That's the game. That's fine. And we need to stop getting hung up on it. And the English need to stop getting hung up on it too. But first, American soccer has to stop getting hung up on it. If a former NFL player who is taking time out on his morning show to talk about Atlanta United and get interested in it and want to learn more, if he asks me a question, and let's say he says goaltender instead of goalkeeper, I'm not going to hang up the phone or say something about it. It doesn't matter. We all know what he's talking about. He's going to learn. I'm going to say goalkeeper, and that's going to click over time. We need to realize we want the Hugh Douglases. We want. What do I complain about as much as anything about ESPN? SportsCenter making fun of MLS, making fun of soccer. I want them to not do that. So if the process to get there is maybe they use the wrong term here and there, fine. And by the way, game and match, it's not the wrong term. It is a game. Like, it's appropriate. So we got to stop doing that as American soccer people first. That's number one, because that's the part we can control. If the English don't want to consider Americans as having any idea of what good soccer is or know what they're talking about, we got to look at our own house first. I have seen it, and I'm sure you can imagine how I feel about this. I have seen Americans, not expats from anywhere else in the world, Americans say that they cannot listen to an American call a soccer match. I've seen that plenty of times. Might upset me a little bit. Just saying. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy. So let's clean up our own house first off. Now let's get to the second part. Ted Lasso is basically. Are you asking? Does the show Ted Lasso make it worse?
Yeah.
One, I have not seen the show, so full disclosure.
I haven't either.
I know the concept. I've seen the commercials before. I know the gist of what they're going for. Does it make it worse in England? No, it just feeds into the stereotype. Maybe in a roundabout way it can make it better because, it's a show that it's not like Ted Lasso is a court jester in this, isn't the idea that there is heart to the show? Like,
yes,
he's a good guy. He's just maybe a little confused at times, things like that. So maybe that can help transform it over time in a subtle way. I would think that would help more than it would reinforce stereotypes. It's playing off of stereotypes.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I don't think it makes it worse. Chris Ashley, settle down. I'm not clicking on the links. Man, I'm trying to learn some new tricks on the production side. Give me a little bit of slack here. Come on. Johannes chimes in. I want everybody to chime in on this because that's what this new segment will be. It is an opportunity to have not a debate, but just a discussion about anything that's going on in the game. And if you guys have topic suggestions, tweet them at OSG Nelson and let him know.
Yes.
And if you have title suggestions for the segment, send them to John too.
Yeah, because Nick and Jarrett have title segments, concepts as well. One other thing I wanted to bring in, when Jesse Marsch was interviewed about his current gig, he said he's not treated like an American coach. And then he was asked about it. He says, my goal was to assimilate, to be myself, but to also honor the culture that I'm working in. 3 years ago, I spoke zero German, zero. Now I'm relatively fluent. It's been 3 years working my butt off to learn the language. I care about it. In some ways, I'm obsessed about it. Most of these clubs are a century old. In America, MLS is 25 years old. We're in our infancy. That's the way Europeans feel about American football. It's not true. It's not reflective of our actual expertise, but we don't have nearly enough history, end quote.
I do hope it gets to a point where the next Jesse Marsch doesn't feel like they have to do all of this extra to be accepted. Although this was a talking point with Fabio Capello going to England, was language and the way he spoke in English. And this happens with players when they give an interview in English. There's a lot of mocking. That's got to stop. That's only hurting the English game in the long run. So they're looking down their nose at the Americans. They do look down their nose at others too. So I guess that's a fair way to put it. Johannes, who has great insight here, says, for me personally, Germany and the USA have always had a different connection from the other European countries, whether it's sports, music, etc. So I believe that U.S. soccer players are more accepted in Germany because of that connection. There isn't as much bias, but that only pertains to players. MLS as a league still isn't really considered a big-time league. That perception still needs to change. That goes to, I think, a little bit of what Jesse Marsch was saying about MLS is 25 years old. It's now starting to get to where an Alphonso Davies goes to Germany, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. They've got some talent.
Yeah.
Christian Pulisic goes to England, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. These Americans can play. Now you're seeing some of these young guys come through. Gioreno will be the next one. That's starting to change the perception. So that's good. That's going to take more time, but it's a slow process. It's happening. J-Dub, the production does not get a gold star. I'll take a bronze star today. I did lose the sound for a while, so it's a bronze star. Jason Nix red carded you, so there you go. Katie says it's a show with heart, talking about Ted Lasso, low on soccer specificity. So if that's the case, I would hope that it doesn't change the perception of American soccer for the negative around the world, and specifically with the English. I think it might help in a weird way. I really think it could help in a weird way. Ricky says it's just another example of people taking satire and trying to make it fact. Sometimes people do miss the satire. That's true. Especially when it's playing off of the stereotypes that are already so prevalent. Burned with a point about American coaches. So going back to the bigger topic here. Says American coaches would have to go to Germany instead, even though there is bias there as well. They have to learn German. That's a big deal over there. And I'm assuming, Burned, that's not even just an American to Germany thing. I know Pep really tried hard to speak German, understand German, give press conferences in German when he first arrived. Was he maybe tipped off that was something he needed to do to be embraced? I don't know. So they have to learn German. Other than that, they will be judged by their performance. Jesse Marsch, Matarazzo will have helped with that. The general mindset lines up well, the focus on hustle, etc. Johannes agrees with that, says learning German and the culture is so important. So, okay, Jesse Marsch fits into this too, what he's saying. Not only for U.S. coaches, it's for all foreign coaches that come to the Bundesliga. Marsch won Coach of the Year earlier this week in Austria. I did not know that. Well-liked, considered very open and friendly and enthusiastic. There is some criticism of his tactics, too open against Atleti, for example, but they are honestly warranted, and that's fine. Yeah, that's the thing that I would like to see is just these coaches and players. I mean, we had the Pulisic situation with Frank Lampard and what Jesse Marsch said about Frank Lampard's impression of Pulisic. I just want people to be rated fairly. That's all. I mean, it doesn't mean that if you're American, you get a pass in these situations. No, just that you're looked at like any other coach. or player or person in the game. I hope that it gets that. I don't know if the show changes that. I don't think it does. I don't think it makes it worse. But it is something that American soccer still needs to continue to work on, and I think it needs to work on it internally as well. And American soccer is a real melting pot in this country. I mean, you go back through the history of like the U.S. Soccer Federation. There's always been a strong German influence. Maybe that's a little bit less than it used to be. Always, obviously, a strong English influence, shared language and all. A slowly integrating Latin influence. Too slow. You're only really now starting to get regular coaching courses done in Spanish, and that needs to change. Different pockets of the country have had different influences. You know, you've had Portuguese in certain areas, you've had Eastern European in other areas, Hungarian in other areas. Like, you've had a lot of different areas of this country that have their own soccer cultures, and a lot of times they're tied to cultures overseas. But there are, and there will continue to be even more, Jesse Marsh's, Bob Bradley's. Bruce Arena was before, and Bruce Arena couldn't get a job in Europe. Even after a 2002 World Cup where he went to a quarterfinal, and what he had done here at the professional level before that, and what he had done at the college level. I'm sure they didn't rate that at all. But he couldn't get that at that time in the mid-2000s. Bradley really went out on a limb when he went to Egypt. And then he went to Scandinavia, and then he went to France, and he got the opening in England, and he was not embraced, and I think that was very poor on the English side of it, because I feel like he was embraced more in the other places he was before he got to Swansea. And I'm saying English. I know Swansea is not in England, but right. I'm talking about the English coverage of the game. Yeah. Bradley was not embraced. Jesse Marsh went a different route, and the Red Bull organization helped here because the integration with Red Bull New York, going over as an assistant, then going to Salzburg, he had an in, and he's helping change the perception. There will be more of those guys, you know, who came up through the American soccer system. I mean, maybe played in college, maybe didn't, maybe played at an MLS academy, maybe played in MLS, then start to coach in MLS. They should get opportunities to go overseas if they are good enough. That's it. It's just getting the chance to have the door open to you, and in being treated in a fair way. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I don't think the show changes anything. I mean, it creates the conversation about it. But the question that Graham started it with, has Ted Lasso doomed American managers to yet more mockery? I don't think it dooms American managers to more mockery. I think the mockery would have been there if the Ted Lasso show existed or not. It needs to change, and I feel like across Europe it is slowly changing. It needs to change more in England, but you could take it a step further and say that England needs to be more welcoming of the foreign influence in their game, period, and not be defensive about it. Because if you're going to spend what they're spending for the Premier League, and you're going to go bring in the best players of the world, what happens next? What's in there now? The best managers in the world. Well, you need to start embracing that idea more. England has, a great opportunity to use that to benefit the English game.
Yeah.
And it feels like instead it is a attitude at times of fear of the foreign influences in their game, and that needs to change. Because, as we've said, there's not a ton of progressive English coaches going on right now and advancing the English game. You have a lot of talent, and a lot of that talent's being developed at clubs that have foreign leadership. And then some of that talent's not rated in a proper way by other people, and then they're going over to Germany and playing and then being sold back for a whole lot of money. Just saying. Yep. Maybe the question, to flip it on its head, should be more of, see, Ted Lasso doomed American managers to yet more mockery. Do the English need to stop mocking not only American managers, but all foreign managers and influences in the game in order to grow their game?
Right.
I'll flip it on its head in that way, because I think that might be more of the issue.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that from Graham Ruthven and thought I would bring that to the floor. So, yeah, I saw that.
Yes, you saw that. There is a conversation about Yiddish as well on the Twitch pitch, and I'm not even going to try.
Well, because there are some key Yiddish words that are quite colorful in their translations. So
yes,
you have to be careful which ones you use and which ones you pick.
A few others we'll hit too. Nick's gatekeepers in anything are the worst. I so agree. J-Dub, American soccer fans like to cannibalize each other. Got to prove who's the most soccerist. That's true.
Nice adjective.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Let's see. A lot of love for Hugh Douglas. Thank you. Love it. And Ragamuffin said he was trying to post the Homer Simpson backing up into the bushes gif. It's okay, man. It's all good. It's all good. No, it's. I guess I've always had the approach and the feeling that you do have to put in some work to grow this here. And the place where you can grow it is with the people who didn't grow up with the game and are new to it. Those are the ones where you need to put in the work, because that's where the growth can be. And I think at times American soccer has thought that you can just roll out a ball, and if you appeal to soccer fans, you'll have 100,000 people at the stadium, and you'll have 5 million people watching, and all will be good. No, I honestly don't think that'll be the case, because soccer fans in this country can watch games from all over the world. They've got so much going on. If they don't like the quality of it, rightly or wrongly, if they don't like the way it's presented, they just won't watch.
Right.
Where you can grow is with new fans. Not that they don't know any better, just that they are new, and you can get them on board at the beginning. And instead of them being a Liverpool fan who is now an Atlanta United fan because they live in Atlanta, they're an Atlanta United fan. And that might lead them to like other teams as well, and that's great. That's what you want. But they're an Atlanta United fan first. They're an MLS fan first.
Yeah.
That's where it grows to me. That's the growth opportunity for soccer in this country. So, in this country, we have to be more open as well to whatever stereotypes you want to have of soccer people or soccer people from different countries or American soccer people. We need to be more open as well. So it's not just an English thing, and I don't think the show changes it either way. We all need to be more open. How about that?
There you go.
Colonel's yelling. Colonel's being a gatekeeper. But Colonel's been consistent on this.
Yes.
This is a little different, and it's some of the down to the naming conventions in this country. Although some other teams are called United as a whole. Colonel is very upset when Atlanta is called United and not Atlanta United. Manchester United gets called United. I know there's a bunch of other Uniteds in England, but they get called that.
But is that more, I guess, is it more accepted as a local colloquialism with the understood that if you're saying it here in this footprint, it means Atlanta United?
Here, yes.
Someone out, yeah.
Here, yes, absolutely, because there's not another United nearby. Like if you are talking about United locally, you know who you're talking about. Yeah. Now, Kefsey goes a further bit, and I agree. You can't call it the United, and that's something that I've definitely tried to drill in. Like, it's not the United because it's not like the Hawks or the Falcons or whatever. So United doesn't bug me. The United doesn't work for any United team. Like, it's just not the way you call it. I get that. I understand it. Modiflow's like, I dislike it. I understand it. It irks him. I get it. I get that one because that doesn't work for any team that's called United. J-Dub says, I don't know, isn't calling Atlanta United like calling Georgia Tech Tech? And I feel like calling Tech is kosher. That's a good point.
Yeah, because it draws the localism to it, where if you're local and you're talking about Tech in our footprint, you assume that you're talking about Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. If it's local here and you're talking about Southern, it's Georgia Southern that you're referring to. So it's that kind of a
state
and understood. Yeah,
I've heard state start to get
Southern,
that here
Georgia
locally.
Southern, yeah.
Even though there's Kennesaw State, when I hear somebody talk about state, my brain goes to Georgia State.
Right, and so because for me it's Kennesaw, and it's state referring to Georgia State.
You do need a shortened version at times. I think at times I speak fast enough to where I can go ahead and throw the whole Atlanta United in there, or I will say Atlanta.
Right.
Because that can work here. But, let's go to Manchester real quick. Like, it's United in its city. You can't say Manchester, really, for either one.
Right.
Maybe they do there. I don't know. I don't hear that on this side of the Atlantic.
No, I don't.
That's where I think the idea, and it hasn't really, not taken off, but it hasn't really become common verbiage. The Five Stripes, as a nickname. That hits sometimes, but not used often. So it's like there needs to be some shortened version. United doesn't bother me. The United does. I'm with y'all on that one.
Yes.
And Ricky has the good point, and this is kind of where it comes up with from like what John and I do. It should always happen like a paragraph, in my opinion. Say the full name first, and then say United, Five Stripes, whatever. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes. Totally. And I think people are talking, because I actually liked this, and I don't know if they did. The United States warm-ups that just had states on the back. I kind of liked it. That was cool.
Yeah, the states.
Colonel's yelling, saying KSU is Kennesaw State, or KSU is Kansas State, not Kennesaw State. Everybody's going nuts. It's good times. Sam Williamson is a fan of Manchester United and Atlanta United. Sam says Atlanta and Man U. But I think the English get mad if you call them Man U. I think. I might be wrong.
I think so. I think I've heard that.
And yes, we do not do as much of the ATL UTD2 because that was very hard. I would always stumble over it.
That's one of those things. Like once again at the beginning of a paragraph, you sit there ATL UTD2, and then you leave it alone, and maybe bring it up another in the second half if you've done it once before.
Yeah, I think now it's okay.
It's too much time. It's too much time to think about it and process it.
Yeah, it's different verbiage. I think we're so used to in this country, like teams having a nickname. A clearly defined one, and calling that team like the Braves, the Falcons. It hasn't happened yet. I kind of thought it would by now, actually. I kind of thought it would. It hasn't yet, so maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I don't know if Orlando City gets. I don't think they really get called City locally as much. I don't really see that. Could be wrong. I don't know if they really get called the Lions a ton. I see that maybe more than City.
Yeah.
It's interesting how these things develop. We're going down a rabbit hole. It's what happens. Talking about how they say different things, like the home of the Falcons, the Hawks, and Atlanta United. Yes, Mike nails that one. Maybe some others don't as much as they need to, but I think that's what's generally said on the sports updates. Anyway, now that we're getting into verbiage and stuff, Tesco says the United sounds like an emo punk band. Can we call the twos U2? John's tried to do that for years, and I won't let him.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
That's why we had to go in a different direction instead of U2.
Not a fan. I'm a fan of U2. I'm not a fan of that being used there.
Yeah.
Abby goes AU2. Haven't seen that really catch on. The twos has caught on more than anything else.
The twos. Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. That feels very like friendly.
Yeah.
Going to see the Twos tonight.
Yeah, we're going over to see the Twos.
Yeah, that's felt very personal.
Yes.
You have Los Dos with the Galaxy, with their Twos.
T2 with Portland.
T2, yeah. So U2 didn't work. Sorry. Maybe I was the killjoy on that. People are voting for it.
Like I said, and that was kind of the genesis for that notion. It's like, okay, well, if Portland has T2, Atlanta United should have U2. And so that was kind of where that was coming from.
Yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care for it. Chris Ashley wants to call the team the Golds now. You have fun with trying to get that one over, Chris. We'll see if it happens.
Chris was all fired up this morning. He missed our conversation about the Chicago Fire rebrand yesterday.
Oh, okay. Save that for a minute. Before you get there, why don't you go ahead and thank our good friend, Steve Apolinsky.
I could do that. Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network for wrongful death and serious injury matters. One conversation that you need to have, and his is the face that runs the place. Steve Apolinsky. A couple different ways that you can have a conversation with Apolinsky & Associates. You can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com. You can give him a call and get a free consultation at 404-377-9191. Or you can go on the World Wide Web. Punch in aa-legal.com, large device or small. Hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whichever advances it to said homepage, and a pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter, still waiting for the identity of the individual or individuals that can have conversations with you in that pop-up window. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million of judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for wrongful death and serious injury matters. There's one place to go, and it is Apolinsky & Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
You were like 20 seconds early that time.
I was burning through it today.
Yeah. Any reason?
No, just I was on a roll. Kept going.
Okay. That's what it felt like.
And they're off.
It felt like a race. Man.
Yeah, well, I was hitting all my talking points, burned through all those stoplights. I was ready to go.
You were. You had some other things you wanted to get into today. Let's talk about the Chicago Fire situation that Chris Ashley alluded to. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. We'll jump back in since we're talking branding and names and what to call things and maybe what things look like as well. And then we'll get into some other MLS stuff.
Yeah, and we also have some developing stuff out of Newcastle.
Well, hold on. You can't just tease that and then, not talk about it. Developing news with John Nelson.
Newcastle United issued the following club statement this morning, our time. The club has previously not commented on the arbitration it is pursuing against the Premier League with respect to its conduct relating to the proposed takeover because of the confidentiality clause in EPL's rules. However, the club is aware of public reports which state that on 17 November, the EPL referred to legal proceedings with the club in a letter to Newcastle supporters. The source of some of the reporting is said to be the EPL. It appears, therefore, that the EPL has leaked the contents of their letter to some of those commenting in the public domain. The club understands that these will be matters of great concern to its fans and therefore considers that, in light of the information disclosed by the EPL, it has no choice but to respond and update its fans in response to this coverage. The club makes no comment on the substance of the arbitration, but it can confirm it has issued arbitration proceedings against the EPL. It is unclear when those proceedings will be resolved given the approach of the EPL and its lawyers, Bird and Bird. Nevertheless, the club will continue to use its best efforts to press for a fair, full, and timely hearing of its claim.
Okay, so wait a minute.
Oh, good grief.
Do they need to get Colleen Rooney on the case to figure out who leaked things? Did I hear that part right? Like
I believe so.
They said things got leaked that shouldn't have got leaked.
Yes, that is their claim.
Okay. But they did confirm that they have filed for whatever arbitration they have at their potential remedy in this issue with that club takeover that was not ruled on, was not ruled on, was not ruled on, was not ruled on, was not ruled on. Then the people wanting to take over the club pulled out. Then it was ruled on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they're still complaining about the process?
Yes.
And they're going to arbitration, but they have no idea what that is going to entail.
Right.
So they give a statement complaining about somebody leaking the contents of a letter, or did they say that that didn't happen? That there was no...
They are complaining about a leak, and they are assuming that it could have only come from one place, the EPL.
Ah. So, did they block everybody else on their Instagram stories?
That's the question.
I think so. Pacine says, to try to clear it up, because I was confused, Newcastle is saying that because the EPL has commented publicly on this matter, the club also now feels compelled to admit that it exists. Okay. Byrne says, and I tend to side with Byrne, I'm sorry, Alex, when Newcastle sells Miguel and I won't have to pay attention to them anymore, I'll be very relieved. Ay, Dios mío.
So Newcastle is still in takeover purgatory.
Not really. I mean, the people who were going to take them over said, we don't want anything to do with this anymore. So, I mean, is that really purgatory?
Oh, well, true.
Like, if the people who wanted to buy it said,
yeah.
no, we don't want to buy this anymore, then is there really a purgatory? Or are we just fighting to fight?
I think we're fighting to fight.
Okay, good times. Yay, Newcastle. Thank you for that. We're really happy about it. Continue amongst yourselves and your leaks, and maybe you can unblock a couple other people on your Instagram stories and see what happens. Okay, on the Chicago Fire logo front, what did Chris Ashley have to say about this?
We have to talk about this for hashtag Throw In Thursday.
We did talk about it yesterday, Chris, but we'll talk about it again.
So, yes, we have to talk about it.
Does anyone know what's going on here?
No, never.
We're trying, Bruce. We're trying.
Well, talk about it. What did he have anything to say about it, or did he just say we have to talk about it?
He just said we have to talk about it.
Oh, he didn't say anything about it. Well, then talk about it, Chris Ashley. Por favor. I said it yesterday. I will stand by it. I know there were some people who disagreed. I believe that when looking at all of the logos around the league, the two that jump out from a bad perspective are Chicago and the LA Galaxy. I think those are the two worst logos in the league. The Chicago one before was good. The one they went to is meh. It's not as bad as maybe some of the criticism. It gets the criticism because it's worse than what they had before. It's awful compared to what they had before. And that's the problem. If this was the first one and you went to the original logo as your second logo, people would say, yay, upgrade, we like it. But going the other way, it's like, that's a step back. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And just some of the basics of it that bugged me is they went for such a long time around this idea of the men in red. It was about red. Chicago was red. Yeah. And they got rid of the red for the most part. Yep. I did like, I want to be nice to Chicago for a minute. I did like that with their navy blue kits, they had red socks. They didn't just go all navy blue. Yep. They navy blue, red. Good job. That's about all I can give you. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they're saying now they're going to address it, and now they're going to do something different. I mean, are they going to have a logo in place for next year? Probably not, because, I mean, these things take time. There's a lead time in getting merch produced, all this different stuff. We're not talking about a Louisville City kind of scale of operation where you could go back to something you had before and ramp up production. Like, you need a lot of stuff. Are you going to be able to do that before the start of next season? I'm skeptical, unless you're just going back to the old logo, which, okay, fine, do it. And you should have done that to begin with. But Chris Ashley says, why did they roll with it this season rather than pulling a Louisville and just punting to redo the brand? I agree. J-Dub says the Fire should just make the Chicago City flag its crest. Those 3 stars are classic. I agree. Ricky just says that the Chicago Fire is a great TV show.
I don't watch Chicago Wednesdays on the Peacock, so I am ill-informed about that.
They should lean harder into the flag. They did for different periods of time where they would do a third kit with it, and it was very good. Yeah. That should absolutely be the base of it, along with the whole fire thing. I mean, do it and lean into that. They were before it. That wasn't the problem. The logo was not the problem with the Chicago Fire. The Chicago Fire's problem was they were garbage on the field for a long time. They were defensive about being garbage on the field for a long time. They said, no, we know better than everybody else, and they were still garbage. And they played out in Bridgeview, which, if they were good, people would make that trip. It was worth it. Cuauhtemoc Blanco, they went to Sequoia. Those teams were good.
Yeah.
That was a long, long time ago. Long, long time ago. So when the product is bad and you're asking people to drive a long way to go see it, I'm not going to go.
Not happening. Nope.
I'm not going. So that's big problem 1. The product is bad. Problem 2, the stadium was outside of the city. You moved into Soldier Field. Okay, you sort that out. Problem 3 was they went off of local TV for a little while, and they just did ESPN Plus as a local TV partner. Now they've corrected that, and they went to WGN. So the big 3 problems, they've corrected 2 of them. They're in the process of correcting the product on the field. They created a 4th problem with the logo, and maybe they're in the process of fixing that. So, you shouldn't have changed it in the first place. So please proceed and get back to normal Chicago Fire, por favor.
Yes. Stunner says that turnaround for the Fire is a record time for an MLS club.
The turnaround to go to something new?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
You rebrand and then you're rebranding.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. That's a big kick in the pants of whoever was really pushing for the rebrand. Your rebrand lasted a year, not even a whole calendar year. Good job, buddy. Way to listen to the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. No. It's got to change. Byrne says the NWSL team is well run. Let them run the MLS business side. They're totally separate. They're not related. Maybe they should be. I think Chicago. Look, they went through some ownership stuff too. Mansueto came in as a minority partner, then bought everything, so now he's putting his stamp on it. He didn't just rush a bunch of stuff outside of the logo, and I think that was probably in process before anyway. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It sounds like he shepherded the move to Soldier Field, which I think was the right move. I don't care if it's an NFL venue in the long term. It's better than Bridgeview. Yes, people would go to Bridgeview when the product was good. Soldier Field is better than that. It feels bigger. A big part of Atlanta's success is Atlanta United feels big because they play in a big stadium. That has helped with some of the casual sports fans who would look at going to a 20,000-seat stadium as small time. It does help. It absolutely does. MLS needs to think bigger and not be afraid of that. Going to Soldier Field, smart move. Got to have a better product to get more people in there. This year's a wash because of COVID and everything that happened. So, okay, fine. What are you doing next year to be a competitive team? That's the number one always. Because none of the rest of it works if your product is bad. You can have the most fire logo. You can have the greatest branding, an incredible tagline, all of this really cool stuff. But if your team doesn't win, people will find something else to do. Mm-hmm. Now, it is also true that just having a good team doesn't make up for bad things in all the other areas. No, it doesn't. But if you're going to pick one, we have this conversation about 4-3 wins versus 1-0 losses all the time. If you're going to pick a direction to go, the on-field product has to be your top priority. Always. Because nothing else works if it's bad. If it's good, you can work on the other things and make them better to fix them. But if the on-field product's bad, you're going to have a very low ceiling of what kind of support you can get.
Yep.
J-Dub asks, did Chicago ever explain why they named their team after one of the single worst disasters in the city's history? I don't think that's the problem, though, J-Dub. I don't think that's ever been the problem because they've done well. They've been a team that has drawn. The name hasn't affected them outside of actually the TV shows. Probably been the bigger issue than the disaster from, is it 1870 something? 1871 is the year that pops into mind. Am I absolutely losing my mind?
I think you're close. I'm checking it real quick. Yeah, Mrs. O'Leary's cow knocks over the lantern.
What? Oh, yes.
Mrs. O'Leary's cow knocks over the lantern, and
it is 1871. I'm not crazy. Thank you, J-Dub.
Nice. Good work.
How did I remember? Where did that come from? Okay. The TV show actually affects them with their Google searches, which is not good.
Yeah, it does, because literally I'm looking up Chicago Fire, and I get Season 9, Episode 2 recap, and I'm like, that's not what I want.
All right, we'll be back to Chicago in just a second. Breaking news from Abby on the Twitch pitch. FYI, we will have the Gulch for tailgate in 2021. The development is delayed until 2022 for now. So, Atlanta fans, you'll have the Gulch another year. You don't lose out on the last year of the Gulch due to the pandemic. So that's cool.
Nice.
Still need to get back to the ability to tailgate and all that, and I hope that'll happen before the 2021 season is over. But
yes,
that can happen in the Gulch for at least one more year. So very, very cool. Thank you, Abby.
Yes.
Burns says about Chicago, the Fire's actually a good team and play pretty good soccer. They should be fine. I think they will. They've still got some upgrades to do. They were pretty good this year. Are they close to being a top 4 team in the East? I do not think so as they are currently constructed. You need... What do they need? They've got Aliseda, who I like on one wing. They've got Barrett, who is a good forward in this league. They've got a good holding midfield with Gaston Jimenez and Alvaro Madron. Pineda is a very good center back. Maybe you can upgrade from Calvo. Maybe they need a right winger and a center back. Maybe another outside back, although I'm not sure if that's as much of a priority. I think they need another winger. I don't think Frankowski is the one. If they get a top winger on that other side, okay, then I could buy them pushing into the top 4 or 5 in the East. They also need Aliseda to continue to improve. They need that midfield to stay together. They need to figure out, exactly, is it going to be Mihailovic playing as the 10? Okay. It was a step in the right direction this year. I don't know if I'll go quite as far as Bernd will on how good they are, but I do think it was a big step in the right direction.
What about keeper?
Well, they lost Kronholm to an injury, and then they were kind of scrambling around. So I'll give them a pass there. They liked Kronholm. The previous coaching staff brought him in and was all about him. I don't think they've gotten better since they let Sean Johnson leave.
Right.
But that's a long time ago. So could they upgrade there? Yeah. There's other pressing needs. One, you just got to get Kronholm healthy and see if he's going to be the guy for Raphael Wiki or not. A lot of back and forth on the name, and was it appropriate? Burns says, isn't that the same principle as the Atlanta, now Calgary Flames? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. San Jose Earthquakes. I mean, you got the natural disasters going. That was brought up too. I think the name was okay. I think they embraced it. I don't think people stayed away from it because of the name. So I think it'll work. Okay. you had some other MLS things you wanted to get into.
Yeah.
Let's work into those. There's a couple of quick updates on players who are available or not available. We talked about Diego Rossi. That's been confirmed. LAFC issued a statement on their 3 positives ahead of their game with Seattle. Palacios, Cifuentes, and Rossi have all tested positive. The players entered self-isolation in their respective countries, will remain isolated and follow the local restrictions and protocol prior to returning to L.A. This is the one that is interesting. Additionally, forward Brian Rodriguez, who has been with the Uruguayan national team, continues to test negative at this time. His return to Los Angeles, as well as his status for LAFC's playoff match against Seattle Sounders FC on November 24th, is still to be determined. They've had, what are they up to now? I need to check because they had a couple more players test positive. Uruguay's issues are going to affect Atletico Madrid because Lucas Torreira has tested positive. In Uruguay, do I have it here or did I miss it? I might have missed it. I think they were up to 12 or 13 people with the group as a whole that tested positive. I don't see any way you can be completely secure in Brian Rodriguez playing on Tuesday, even if he's testing negative at this point.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. Torreira tested positive upon arrival in Spain. He had not tested positive with Uruguayan testing. He tested positive when he arrived back in Spain. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So LAFC has a lot of issues with all those players. Pizarro, Leal are both expected to play in the Nashville-Miami game. I have not seen anybody who went on international duty who has been ruled out without a positive COVID test at this point. Kai Kamara was picked up by a charter. He posted it on his Instagram stories. I believe he flew from Sierra Leone to Madrid and then to New York. Man, that's a long trip for Kai Kamara to get back to be able to play.
Hope he got to stretch out on the plane.
Oh, it looked like a pretty nice plane, so I think he did get to. So it looks like everybody will be eligible, but let's just wait and see. Kefsi, what was your question? I missed it. So Kefsi had a question looking for a confirmation. We'll get there. What did you want to get into on the MLS front now that we've kind of laid that groundwork, that it looks like all the concerns about players being available have been answered?
Yeah, I got a couple of things separate in the Twitter timeline. We'll get back to that. Jeff Carlisle over at ESPN yesterday said that teams that suffer from an outbreak of coronavirus during MLS Cup playoffs will likely be forced to forfeit their match and thus exit the postseason, sources have told the 4-letter. That's the headline to his article, the first sentence anyway.
Okay, if they have an outbreak and the game can't get played, they will forfeit.
Getting into his the depth of the article. MLS has completed the protocol for the playoffs. Included in that document is how it handles outbreaks within one of the participating teams. One source with knowledge of the situation stated that MLS will make every effort to reschedule games in which one or both of the teams is suffering from a COVID-19 outbreak. But, as we talked about, MLS is operating under a compressed schedule due in part to the pandemic. Postseason set to conclude with MLS Cup December 12. That gives the league little in the way of flexibility in terms of rescheduling games. The source said to Carlisle that if a game cannot be rescheduled, the team with the COVID-19 outbreak would be forced to withdraw from the postseason, allowing the team free of COVID-19 to advance. If both teams are dealing with an outbreak, the team with the higher points per game average during the regular season would be the one to advance.
Ah, that's interesting. That was the one I was wondering, if you had issues on both teams. I was wondering if it was going to go down to, well, they got 3, they got 2.
Yeah.
This team's got more viral load.
Yeah.
So they lose because of viral load.
Yeah.
The N gene is going to play a role here. Man, there's not a whole lot else you can do. I mean, there's just not much else you can do with this because you're locked into that date for the final. And there's only so much wiggle room. Maybe 24 hours? Like, maybe you can push a game back a day? Maybe? Yeah. It will happen. I hate to think that it will. I think that it will. Yeah. Just because of where everything stands right now. That's why when we talked about this about a month ago and what MLS needs to do and what they should do here, I thought they needed to go to local bubbles. And I know you're asking players then again to leave home and be away from the family, but you're going to have players test positive, even if players are careful. And players have to be ultra careful right now because exposing yourself to risk right now could knock your team out of the postseason. That has been laid down now. There's no other way they can do it. Like, this is the only way. I would hate to see a game come down to points per game because both teams have issues with positive tests. I do wonder what the bar is going to be. I don't want to be callous about this, but I feel like the bar has to be higher than it was during the regular season.
Yeah.
If a team has 2 positives, but has 25 players who are eligible to play, they should play the game.
Yep.
As long as everybody else follows all the procedures and tests negative. The game, and that goes back to why should they, why could they, you're not seeing the spread in games. So by playing the game, if a team has 2 positives and you're worried about that team having more pop up, if you play the game and everybody follows the proper protocols in the pre- and post-game interaction, the game has not shown spread. So there's no increased risk there of if it's 3 players who test positive versus 2, because the game doesn't have risk in it. Not any large amount because you're not seeing transmission in game activities. I think that bar has to be higher. And that, I thought, was a mistake at the beginning they made with the, if it's more than 1, they're going to postpone the game or cancel the game if they can't reschedule it. I think they have to move from that now. We'll see. I mean, if it's more than 1 player that tests positive for a game to get moved, you're going to have a bunch of games moved.
Yeah.
I just don't see any other way that doesn't happen. I don't know.
A couple of other things involving MLS. Chris Wondolowski told Bay Area News Group this week he still wants to play 1 more year.
Dig it. He needs to go out in the right way. I love that.
Wants to play a 17th season in MLS. Signed a 1-year deal back in October of 2019. If he can't come to an agreement on a new deal after the 2020 season, he'd become a free agent per eligibility rules.
Get it done, San Jose.
See you later, alligator.
I want to see those 2 back on the field.
Yes.
Was very, very cool. One of my favorite things from the 2018 regular season was after that madness of a game in San Jose, was Wondolowski going out of his way to go find Joseph and talk to him and give him a hug, because I think he had just broken the record right before that. Massive respect for Wando and the way he treats the game and the way he treats this league. And just how good of a player he has been in this league. He gets it. I'd love to see him have another year.
He told The Athletic as a part of a recent feature on him, I'm having a lot of fun. I still feel strong, still feel like I'm able to physically do it. Mm-hmm. I think that was always the question for me, to be honest. Last year, I was questioning if I could, so I really concentrated, and I think quarantine actually kind of helped. It kind of reinvigorated, kind of a health kick for me, which has helped. He said that one of his motivations for playing on is so he can enjoy a proper farewell in a full stadium.
Yep, he deserves that. He 100% deserves that. That was the one thing I hated about Javier Mascherano retiring in the way he did when he did, is he didn't get the send-off that he deserved. I want to say it was Luis Suarez who might have said that. Somebody said something like that, like, legends shouldn't retire like this. They can't retire like this. They need that send-off that they deserve. Wando needs that. So San Jose, I mean, get a deal done, bring him back. He's going to play the same kind of role, off the bench, spot starter. Give him the proper send-off. Hopefully, by the end of next season, you'll be able to have a full stadium in there to send him off the right way. I love that.
Sources are telling The Athletic that the MLS is shortening the Super Draft from 4 rounds to 3 this year.
They should. We talked about it a little bit on Stoppage Time yesterday. If you want to go back and see that, it's at facebook.com/929thegame. You know, past the first 10 guys or so, it's a crapshoot. 2019, you did see some guys in the second round and in the third round who made teams and have played roles. Past the first 10, it's who knows. So they don't need 4 rounds. Cutting it to 3 is fine. I think eventually they'll cut it to 2. And I think that's the way to go. That'll free teams up. Although you don't see a lot of those guys even get invited into camps anymore. Some do. A lot of teams pass the second round anyway on the draft pick. It'll make it just a little bit easier where players don't go to a camp that they probably won't make that team, and they'll be able to pick a USL team to go sign for and not be pulled in different directions. I'm good with. I think go to 2 eventually, but 3 this year, yeah, that makes total sense.
Kevin Baxter yesterday, and this is tied to Major League Soccer.
Okay.
Kevin Baxter yesterday reported that Southern California's fledgling NWSL team will be playing at Bank of California Stadium.
Why'd you stress fledgling?
That's just that was fledgling NWSL team. It's just the adjective in the sentence.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't. The stress on it was. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's just a new team. It's okay. I think that word team has a negative context, and it's not supposed to.
No, it's like so they're new. They're fledgling.
New.
It's
yeah,
like
they're new.
It's a bird. You know,
they're sorting it out.
So,
they're figuring it out.
Angel City is going to be playing at Bank of California. The team did not immediately confirm that to Baxter for his article, but they are set for a press conference today. Sports Business Journal came out this morning and said that Heineken has signed on as Angel City's first corporate sponsor, 4-year founding partner deal with the brewer for rights in the beer, non-alcoholic beer, hard seltzer, and craft beer categories. So Budweiser is your major national sponsor for the NWSL. Heineken does the same thing with Orlando Pride and Orlando City, that Heineken is a team sponsor at the team and local level. Angel City would be the same thing. Budweiser is the national sponsor with team-level opt-in options, and so that's how the two of them will coexist.
That's how Heineken does it in MLS. They're the league sponsor, and they have teams that are also on board with Heineken, and others aren't.
And then the last MLS-y thing that I had on my sheet.
MLS-y?
MLS-y, that's an adjective.
Okay, sure.
Gab Marcotti over at the 4-letter has a piece up, and it's Ivan Gatsidis over at AC Milan says that an MLS Liga MX merger could be good for growth.
Interesting. Proceed.
Gatsidis helped launch MLS in 1996. This is from Marcotti's piece, and he believes a merger would be beneficial. Quote, I've always thought that it needs to be looked at. A league that encompasses North America, including Mexico, is something that would be a tremendous driver of interest.
Yeah, it would. I don't know how the logistics work out, as we've talked about many times, but sure.
Continuing. Gatsidis adds, MLS has more flexibility, probably because they don't have the kind of history and established structures that exist in European football and that are so difficult to change. Obviously, the CONCACAF Champions League already exists, but this could be developed in different ways, and the most extreme would be a merger of the leagues. I don't know if that's the answer, but there is a tremendous opportunity in a transnational competition.
I've always said I don't think it is a full merger that makes sense. I do think it's more than Leagues Cup. I think the challenge is Copa MX and the U.S. Open Cup because of the time they take up.
Yep.
You could create an additional competition. Now, you also have CONCACAF Champions League that needs to go to a group stage and is talking about adding group stage and more games. That would make it more difficult. I think CONCACAF is maybe talking about that because of this kind of chatter. A full merger would mean you'd have to have a full first and second division.
Yep.
MLS ownership would have to sign off on that because they didn't buy into that. They bought into something different. A full joint league, I think, is far away. More interaction and more competition between the two is doable. Could it be kind of like the talk about an expanded Champions League in Europe where instead of playing 6 group stage games, maybe you're playing 10? Kind of like what the Copa Liga Profesional is in Argentina, where you're playing a first stage of 6 and then you're playing a second stage of 5, so you're playing like 11 games. That's replacing a league right now, but could you do that in the midweeks? Yeah, maybe in the calendar you could figure that out. Teams would then be playing more like 45 to 55 games a year. You're going to have to increase rosters. You're going to have to increase pay. If the money is there for it, you'll see something happen. Because, again, especially after the pandemic, cash will rule everything around me. It will. It's going to have to. And if this is a way to bolster both leagues' financial coffers, and they can find a way to do it, they will. A full joint league, FIFA would have to sign off on it, and they haven't as of yet. Keep an eye on what happens with Belgium and the Netherlands, because they've talked about it. This is different than a few teams from another FIFA member playing in somebody else's league. You know, Canada playing here, Wales playing in England. Like, those are easier to say yes on a case-by-case. This would be a full merger. That's going to take a lot of doing. I don't know if FIFA wants to open that door either. So you got that aspect. You got, MLS might be able to do it because of the shorter history. Liga MX doesn't have a short history. You got to deal with that side of it. Would they want to do a full merger? I think there's an in-between step that can be a moneymaker. There will be more expenditure with it, but if the revenue is worth it, then it's worth it. It should be on the table. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but it should be on the table because both of these leagues, all of these clubs, are going to need to make money in the short term to make up for the losses of 2020.
Gutsidis wrapped up his conversation with Marcotti saying MLS is a phenomenal case study for a really modern, forward-looking league, not afraid of change. With the tools available to it, it's done an incredible job. It has amazing stadiums, a game that's growing at a tremendous pace, real relevance, very progressive attitudes, engaged ownership, and a healthy financial foundation. These things are extraordinary given where we were when we started back in 1994. I remember trying to get investors and what a struggle it was. The World Cup was 2 weeks away, and people were convinced even then that the stands would be empty, and now look at it.
Yeah, that's going to be a Soccer Files here coming up in a week or two on those days, looking back at the very beginning of MLS and how they were going to start in 1995, and they didn't have the money in place. How they were up against it to start in 96 and had to get creative with getting enough money in. You know, the amount of investment they wanted to start kept getting smaller because they couldn't find it. This was after a World Cup, which was very successful. So the fact that they got off the ground, and they got off the ground the way they did, the fact that they overcame the mistakes that they did early on and the, kind of bad turns and had to contract to grow, where they are now, it is amazing. And it is a case study, and it should be celebrated. I think at times it's derided, and it should be celebrated. But the very early days, man, they were bumpy. They were very bumpy, and there was a lot of people who thought that it wouldn't even get off the ground, or wouldn't survive year one, and it definitely wouldn't survive year two. And it is still growing now to the point that sports business people who are not soccer savvy, not soccer guys, are starting to look at this as, wow, MLS is either past in the NHL right now or passing the NHL right now. That's a big change, because it wasn't that long ago that people were saying, no, it can't grow. It is what it is. It's never going to grow any further. It's really come a long way.
All right, we got Twitters. We got the big board off your left shoulder. We got Twitch Pitch. Where you want to go?
Well, we've done most of the stuff on the board except for Messi, and we'll get into that here in a minute. one thing that I had alluded to on the Twitch pitch was a question about the LA Galaxy's name, and that's what they were looking for confirmation on. It sounds like the LA Galaxy's name origin was down to the stars of Hollywood to create a galaxy. Some of those early potential team names were not good. Chicago was going to be the Chicago Rhythm until they changed it to the Fire. So that was an improvement, I think.
Yes.
There were a few other different crazy stories that I'll try to dig into a little bit as we've talked a lot about branding, so I'll try to include that in my Soccer Files episode about the early days of MLS. It might be a little series. It might be a mini series of early days of MLS. All right, what do we got on the Twitters? Because we have not talked much about the Twitters today.
All right, Nathan Pugh is in, and he says, this is a Gigi Wijnaldum underappreciation tweet. His versatility across the entire pitch, endurance, and leadership show how every team could benefit from someone like him. Hashtag random and biased Thursday thoughts.
But I was told that Frank de Boer didn't know how to prepare a team or coach a team or get players in the right positions or any of that. I was told he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
Funny how things change. He's lost 1 of 6. That's a little different than the conversation earlier in the week, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't won. He's the first to never win his first 4 games. He's won back-to-back, and now when you look at it, he's only lost 1 of 6. Got quiet.
It did get quiet.
He's put Wijnaldum in a good position, and it's working. He's not a dummy. I agree. Wijnaldum is very underrated, and they're going to need him because everybody else is hurt, it seems like.
Yeah. Yes.
Can he play defense?
Yes. Yep. Nick Brawley with a winking emoji says, Klinsmann to ATL. Let's make it happen.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
That's all I have to say.
Jason Nix linked us to the Messi discussion for a little later.
Well, okay, that'll lead us into it.
All right.
Just to jump on it, we'll get a little deeper into it tomorrow as we look at some of the big games in Europe coming up. You got Atleti and Barca this weekend. Antoine Griezmann will be a huge part of the story. He was at Atleti. He was kind of a big deal. Barcelona comes in, pays the release clause of $141.98 million, and now he's coming off the bench. Griezmann's former agent is the very important thing here. Eric Olhatz said, Antoine arrived at a club with big problems in the fact that Messi controls everything. He is the emperor and monarch, and he never wanted Griezmann to sign. His attitude has always been deplorable, and he let it be known. You hear Griezmann say he's not got any problems with Messi, but never the other way around. So, he's not Griezmann's current agent, not at all. Lionel Messi was a little busy with Argentina. Good wins. He spoke to the media after the game in Peru. Went back to Barcelona. He was accosted by reporters at the airport. According to Reuters. Accosted. Lionel Messi said this. The truth is that I'm a little tired of always being the problem for everything at the club. On top of that, after a 15-hour flight, I had the tax authorities waiting for me. It's madness. He's had some tax problems. That's true.
Yes.
So, Messi's said that he doesn't have a problem with Griezmann. I don't know what former agent man is trying to start here. Not helping his former client, but maybe he doesn't want to help his former client. I don't know. Antoine Griezmann hasn't played well, and it hasn't been a good fit. And if you want to blame that on Messi, who has been the best player in Barcelona history, go ahead. I don't think you're going to get a lot of sympathy there. So, I don't know, but it's just another telenovela within the big telenovela of Barcelona being an absolute mess at the moment. Total, complete mess. And we'll see if it can get better. I'll be very curious to see what this looks like on the weekend, and be very curious to see what the Spanish media has to say over the next 24, 48 hours or so before that game, and how much this stuff gets play. But Messi does get blamed for a lot of things at Barcelona, and it's a little bit of a joke.
Yes. Also on the board this morning, Tafka says we need to get Pulisic doing yoga and some less conventional training efforts.
I don't know if any of that's going to help. He might just be one of those guys who has dodgy hamstrings. This isn't a surprise, though, that he was going to still be sidelined. I think maybe it's become a little bit more of a story than it should have been. Frank Lampard said it was a problematic hamstring injury. Maybe the terminology is a little scary. So Christian Pulisic is not fit for Newcastle, but he stepped up his training slowly. It's been quite a problematic injury, so we'll stay cautious. Injured in the warm-ups on October 31st. So a hamstring injured on the 31st to still be an issue. That doesn't feel problematic. Like that feels somewhat normal for a hamstring. I'd be surprised if he was ready for this weekend. Let's wait and see. He has had injuries like this before, so maybe just the accumulation is the concern, but it might just be his body type. I mean, I don't think he's training improperly. Might just be somebody who is going to be injury prone, and you're going to have to find things to protect him. I don't know if yoga will protect his hamstrings. Maybe. Pilates? Who knows?
Yeah. Yep. Tafka also says, in discussing what we talked about off the top of the show, he says, Sinclair may have a big problem in going back to streaming services to renegotiate. They burned a bunch of bridges and caused a considerable loss of viewership for those companies. I wouldn't be shocked to see those platforms give them a giant middle finger.
No, Tafka, those platforms are not going to give a giant middle finger to NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball coverage. They will not. That's just how it is. I mean, ESPN, back in the day, when ESPN got the NFL for the first time, because they got the NFL, they were able to steamroll cable providers into massive subscriber fees because nobody was going to be the one cable company that didn't have the NFL game. Now, NBA, Major League Baseball, all of that's a little different, but they won't do it. They just won't. Live sports are driving so much of everything at the TV level right now. They're critical. Both sides could point and say bad things about one another when it came to a few MLS teams, and unfortunately Atlanta was one that was caught in the crossfire. They can't afford to do it when it comes to basketball, baseball, the NHL. And like we said earlier, Bally's partnership will put the emphasis on Sinclair to get these things out there.
Yeah.
And these different streaming services want people watching these games. I mean, Hulu has live sports. They say that all the freaking time. So if they don't have all the live sports, you're gonna have a problem.
It's an issue. Yeah.
So they'll figure it out. It was always going to happen once the NBA came back, and I hate that MLS isn't a driver like the NBA is. There's probably a lot more NBA teams that would be affected by this than MLS teams were affected. It'll get done. You're not going to see Hulu and YouTube TV say, no, we don't want you back, even though you have the rights to X team, Y team, Z team. They'll find a way to get it done.
Yep. Antino's had another I'm afraid of where this is going moment when I started mentioning the AM workout shows.
That could have went bad. It didn't get as bad as it might have. That's true.
Tofka says, so FIFA's created better rules for maternity leave than the U.S. Congress. Facepalm emoji.
Accurate. Didn't think I would give FIFA that props today, but good job, FIFA.
Nathan Pugh says, cut back the number of windows. Preach, Jason. Liverpool's been pillaged by this crap. Well, not crap, but yeah, crap.
That's crap. They need to. They're going to have to. They're going to have to figure this out. You got a lot of things coming to a head with proposed super leagues, with proposed growth of the Champions League, with more money on the club game. That's going to have to take a priority. first, we need to get rid of international friendlies. I just don't care about Costa Rica and the Basque Country.
Nope.
I don't really care about the U.S. and Panama in a friendly, to be perfectly honest. It was nice because you had young players that you got to see for the first time, so, I mean, you would have taken it against anybody. But in general, I don't care about friendlies. Get rid of them. If you're going to have a Nations League competition, okay, streamline it. If you're going to have your continental competitions, yes, those are great. Copa America, Gold Cup, European Championships, all great. Qualifying processes for them, sure, let's do it. Let's get rid of international friendlies, meaningless games. They're gonna have a ton of injuries when they go in next year with 3 qualifiers per international window in Europe. That's madness. And they're going to do not 1 friendly and 2 competitive games like they have been. They're going to do 3 qualifiers in the same period of time where they used to play 2. Yeah, nobody's going to get hurt. This is a weird cycle because of the pandemic, that's true, but after 22, where they're going to lose a set of windows between the 22 World Cup and the 26 because of the 22 World Cup being later. Actually going to lose more than a couple windows. They've got to have a better plan. FIFA, you did a good thing today. Now is the time to get everybody down at the table and say, look, we got to create a new calendar here and do this the right way. You're on a roll, FIFA. Let's do it.
Tofka's in with another couple of quick points. In the hey, I saw this discussion, Tofka went the way of announcers. He said that nationality doesn't matter to Tofka when it comes to his announcers because a bad play call is still a bad play call by an announcer.
Just like a good one should be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen this conversation, and yeah, it hurts. You know, it hurts that because I was born in a certain place or I have a certain accent or lack thereof that I'm not good enough. Not anything about what I'm doing.
You're just inferior.
Yeah, just inferior because I don't have an accent or I have an accent that's not good for some people. Yeah, that sucks. Like I that sucks, and we need to be a little more open-minded about that because I've heard good announcers and bad announcers from every place in the world.
Yep. And Tofka says, incredibly fortunate that the 5 Stripes came about so organically. I love our nickname.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I think it started somewhere between us and Doug Robertson. I think Doug put it in print for the first time.
Right.
I believe. Definitely in like a newspaper situation because he's the only one in Atlanta, but it started to stick there. And I think we started using it around that time of just like, we need something else to call this team.
Yeah.
We need another name. We need an alternative. Okay, cool. Let's use it. Let's see if it sticks. And it stuck. And that's down to the fan base. But just tossed it out there, and it clicked a little bit.
And Swickster's in this morning, and he says, Soccer Down Here message from MLS can also be read in regard to the playoffs and the Carlisle piece. Message from MLS can also be read as responsibilities on you. Don't blank it up.
Yep. Accurate. It has to be. There's no other way around it.
Yeah. And that officially catches us up on Twitter.
All right, we're going to fly through the Twitch pitch. Modiflow misses Kobe Jones. And Jason Nick says he ain't dead, which is true. This started from the LA Galaxy conversation. Modiflow gives Kobe Jones props on commentary. I will second those props. I like him on the Liga MX games especially. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Kobe's great. Kobe does a lot of good things for the game as well. Does a lot of outreach, does a lot of things with the U.S. Soccer Foundation. Kobe is good people, and I agree with Modiflow. He is an MLS GOAT. J-Dub says, we don't want to see MLS playoffs turn into a Hunger Games, last man standing kind of situation. That's how it gets decided. We get down to the final.
Hunger Games.
Well, no, not exactly. We get down to the final, and both teams have an outbreak, and whoever had the better regular season wins it.
Yeah,
happened in USL Championship and USL League One. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Burned with a good point. They should be using the new rapid tests. Less accurate, but faster, and they show infectiousness, not infection. They should do that every day. Get it done. I am all on board. Modiflow says Kobe and Darlington Nagbe are his favorite Americans in MLS ever. That's bold. Knicks throws Landon Donovan into it. Knicks named his son after Landon Donovan. I did not know that, Jason
wow.
Knicks.
Very nice.
Very cool. You've had a ton of good Americans in MLS. Brian McBride in the early days with Columbus. John Harkes with DC. Clint Dempsey with New England when he came into the league as a young buck. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. Landon, obviously, with what he did with San Jose and the LA Galaxy. So many. So I'm not gonna limit it to two. Chris Ashley says they should talk to the USL about how they ran their season. There were plenty of matches in League One this season where teams did not have full benches, but getting the match in was the priority over postponing and canceling. I wish MLS had done better with that during the season. The bar should have been higher than more than one positive. And it feels like that was the bar. I don't think that was ever officially laid out. It should have been higher because, yes, the game needs to get played in these situations because now it really needs to get played. It's a playoff game. You need it to finish this season off, as crazy as it's been. But you've got a very low bar for not having a game get played. You're going to have to change that, and that's just going to have to be accepted. I don't know. We'll see. Ragamuffin wants to talk nonsense about Chris Wondolowski about the Belgium miss. Yes, it happened.
Yes, it happened.
Well, then let's talk about Steven Gerrard and the slip.
Yeah, there you go.
Does that ruin his career? No. One miss, one bad thing shouldn't ruin a player's career. It was a bad miss. Very bad miss. He will be remembered for it. No question. He should also be remembered for a lot of good things. I think Stevie G is too. Nobody remembers Stevie G at LA Galaxy because they'd like to forget that one too because that was awful.
Yes.
Abby says, hoping that by late 21, there will be full stadiums. Fingers crossed. I totally agree. I hope so. I feel better about it than I did last week. I think there are things going in the right direction. Sam Williamson says, so does that mean one more season of Jeff? Question mark. Maybe. He's still playing at a level where, yes, he is. So I'd have no problem with that. Modiflow. Did I miss something, Modiflow? Let me make sure. He is yelling about a player that...
All right, Wilson. I was going to say, while you were searching, I was going to give you another developing news.
Oh, okay. I can give you a developing news. Hold on. Developing news.
Word out of USL League One. Charlie Davies has joined the prospective League One ownership group trying to bring a League One club, to his home state of New Hampshire. So he's joining the group led by Jeremy Zelanes, trying to bring that group to League One for 2022.
Very nice. I like it.
That would be the second presence of League One in the Northeast, joining New 2, New England Revolution 2, who joined this year. So good, cool stuff from Charlie Davies there. So that just came out from League One.
Very much. I like it. Modiflow, tell me about Machop Chol. What you're yelling about? Because you're saying Machop Chol, let's go. It was his birthday on the 15th. So happy belated birthday to Machop.
Yes.
Fill us in, please.
Yeah.
Making sure I didn't miss anything. Chris Ashley says they should just eliminate the super draft, in his opinion. Make everyone a free agent. No, the draft does shine a light on the college game. I think it helps a little bit. 2 rounds is enough, though. 2 rounds, you get 2 players. If you want to get an extra pick or 2, fine. You bring those guys into camp. If you have 10 that play double-digit games the next season, that's okay. It's kind of what the NBA is. But look at how much excitement there was with the NBA draft last night. Even though it's about the same kind of percentages. Like, if you're not in the first 10 picks, it's more of a crapshoot. I know college basketball is bigger than college soccer, and it probably always will be. But 2 rounds is good enough. I'm okay with that. I don't eliminate it completely.
Yeah, no, I think that 2 rounds should be good because you mentioned you get past the top 10 picks, it's a crapshoot. You still have those folks in the second round that came in and made impacts. But no, I think that, because you remember when the NBA draft was like 9 rounds?
Oh, yeah, it's stupid. You only start 5 players. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
That's a joke. Kefsey says when Mexico joins the league, they can call it the North American Soccer. Never mind. But, Burned didn't. Burned. I don't know if you knew Gazidis' history with MLS. Yeah, he was vital in the early days. Liga Interamericana, according to Modiflow. Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad. Burns says, whatever helps to get rid of the ridiculously low salary cap, bring it on. I'm okay with that. Raise it. More money. Money is good. Might take a couple years to get back to the more money part. Yeah. Burns says, Marcotti likes MLS. He gets the whole sports environment here and how it is beneficial in many ways. Good point. Ragamuffin has a question. It has become a bit of a thing. The Twitters.
Yes.
Ragamuffin asks, do you shop at the Krogers as well?
I shop at the Krogers. I shop at the Publicis.
No, you don't shop at the Publicis. Nobody shops at the Publicis. Do you
shop
at the Krogers?
Occasionally, yeah. It's not a default, but I do shop at Kroger's.
No. Do you call it the Krogers?
Rare, every once in a blue moon, but it is not a consistent thing.
It's not a consistent thing to call it Kroger's.
Right.
Okay.
I do use it occasionally like the Twitters, but I do not use it consistently.
Fair enough. Just checking.
Kind of like the Walmarts. I don't do Walmarts.
No, I've never heard that one.
I don't go to the Walmarts.
I've heard Kroger's, absolutely,
yes.
But it's Kroger, yes. Sam Williamson says, speaking of Messi, did you see all the reporters at the airport when he arrived? Where is his security? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Johannes says, if Klinsmann came to Atlanta, I would maybe be the most excited person in the world. Just saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A little scared.
2 words. Hertha Berlin.
I got a whole lot more words than that.
I was just going with recency.
If Clancy's not coaching, I'm more okay with it. I think my bitterness is that we were promised proactive soccer with the national team, and it was a regression. And that was disappointing. And maybe the player base, he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. Maybe he couldn't get what he wanted to do across. All those things are possible. But they got more and more defensive during his time, and he made so many different mistakes. He shouldn't have been signed to a second cycle. That's not on him. That's on Sunil Gulati.
Yep.
He shouldn't have been signed to a second cycle before the first cycle was even done. He shouldn't have survived the Gold Cup semifinal loss to Jamaica.
Nope.
That should have been the time where you cut it off, because you did with Bob Bradley in 2011, and you didn't, and it then got worse, and it did have an effect on not making the World Cup. You lost your first 2 games. Burned, I don't see a good ending for Messi at Barcelona. The situation almost forces him to be the villain in the end and leave. If he stays, he'd have to take a huge pay cut, absolutely, and be part of a long rebuild. Yep. I think the reason he's been positioned as the villain is because that was the way the club wanted it to be. I think Bartomeu started that process a while ago.
Yep.
It's not fair. It's not right. It shouldn't be the case. But, yeah, I think that ship has sailed, sadly. J-Dub says, speaking of leg injuries, poor Klay Thompson. I feel bad for him. Man, Achilles?
Yeah, Achilles.
Just horrible luck. Horrible luck. Hamstrings can be weird. A lot of talk about hamstrings and Pulisic. Alex Bassine, Messi at City and Ronaldo back at Man U is the final battle we need right now before the asteroid finishes us off. Man.
Yeah.
That got dark really fast, Alex. I don't like that. The real last dance, according to Sam Williamson. Dig it? I'm in.
All or nothing. Doing all or nothing on those 2.
Sure.
Messi at Manchester City and Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United.
Sure. I'm with Byrne. The whole world soccer schedule calendar is going to be completely insane until after Qatar. It will. It will. J-Dub wants friendlies to be turned into a FIFA 21 video game tournament, like what the NFL is doing with the Pro Bowl. I'd much rather see that than friendlies with random teams that mean nothing. I'm all on board. All on board. Colonel is claiming 5 stripes as the first one. Maybe you were, Colonel, but I'm talking about where like other people heard it. That's the thing. I mean, Doug at the paper, like when it gets in print, it gets more traction than even us talking about it. So whoever came up with it first, Doug got it into the public consciousness. I know we talked about it around that same time. And I don't know. I think Doug said he couldn't remember if he heard it from somebody else or if he heard it on this show. So I don't know. But no, not knocking it. You might have. You very well could have. I don't know. But Doug got it further spread than anybody else. A lot of ranting about FIFA 21 and EA. I actually kind of like it. I might be one of the only ones. I know a lot of people don't. I did have to change the settings a little bit to make it feel a little more realistic, but I enjoy it.
What did you do?
You would have no idea. I'm changing like sliders on things to make it feel more realistic. That's like your eyes are bugging out and it's over your head. I understand. You don't play video games.
You're right. Yeah, I don't play video games as much as I used to. So, yeah, when you're mentioning sliders, I thought it would be like changing player parameters and leagues and teams and things like that.
No, that doesn't make it more realistic. It's changing the way the game plays. And I like that they give you those effects. I wish they just made the game more realistic. I like the realistic style rather than like the arcadey, goofy style. Right. So I'll make it more realistic. I was also not happy with I'm playing a season with Napoli. Juventus injured 2 of my players and beat me, and I was very upset.
Do you get a reverse fixture with them at some point?
I mean, it's a league. Yes, that's how leagues work.
Oh, I didn't know how it was structured. Do you get
it's structured like
revenge?
real?
Do you get to exact revenge at some point?
If I can injure some players, I will.
Okay, that's why I was asking.
I will take my frustrations out for them injuring Dries Mertens for 3 months. Not happy about this at all.
Wow.
Very angry. Let's see. What else we got? Mixed takes on Charlie Davies in League One. Being involved in League One, I am all about it. He has some different soccer takes, and that's completely fine. He is completely entitled to his different soccer takes. J-Dub says, I'm a fan of the draft. The NBA killed last night's draft. It was very entertaining. Would love to see MLS get to that level. It won't on TV because it's not as impactful, but it can at least in the way it's presented. It needs to be more fun. It needs to be more celebratory. It needs to be treated as a bigger deal. I think at times, like the way it's presented is like, yeah, we got to be here so we don't get fined. Like, come on, let's have some fun with it. I mean, I thought some of the stuff they did this past time was cool, like the whole thing with Jack Mayer and going to his house and all that. Okay, cool. This is going in the right direction. Let's have fun with it. Let's celebrate these guys getting drafted. Next step is them actually making it into teams and playing, because then the next year you can talk about, hey, look at what Daryl Dike did in his rookie year. Who's the next Daryl Dike?
Yep.
Find out. Watch. Starting at noon. Like, come on, let's do it.
Next.
Ricky Ricardo suggested Major Liga Soccer for the combined Mexican and MLS league.
I like that.
That could work. You don't even have to change anything much to it. You can keep the same logo. It's all good.
Yeah.
See how Liga MX feels about that.
Yeah.
The Colonel says Klinsmann also promised player development, and all he did was to find Europeans with U.S. passports. That's a little unfair. I'm going to have to praise Klinsmann. He was involved in some big picture things, which is where I think his skill set falls. Was he directly involved with the development academy? No. Did he do some things that helped with that and helped with some of the links to the national teams, the youth national teams? I think so. He thought very highly of Tab Ramos. That was good because Tab, I think, did a really good job with the U20 program and overall the youth national team program. He did some good things in that regard. I do agree on the actual roster selection. He leaned further into the dual national than maybe Bradley did. He also got away from the Latin player, which was a frustration for me. He started talking that up a lot, and then you saw them kind of phased out. And whether that was down to the level, maybe he didn't rate them as highly. I don't know. Maybe there were biases there that created it. I don't know. But it didn't really happen. My biggest issue is just how defensive the team got. Tim Howard setting a record for saves in a World Cup knockout game is not something to celebrate.
No.
Outside for Tim Howard. Like, Tim Howard can celebrate it because he had a great day. You gave up way too many shots on goal in that game. You're not winning those games. You nearly did, and that's cool because Tim Howard had a huge day, but most times when you give up that many shots on goal, you're losing 6-7-0.
Yeah.
And that's an embarrassment. Go ask Germany right now. That's an embarrassment. Yeah. Go ask Brazil. Go ask Liverpool when they lost big. Go ask Manchester United when they lost big. It's not good. Let's see. Cassie says, I have to assume Soccer Down Here is correct about Doug spreading 5 stripes because people who follow the AJC said it to me more than others. Also caused them to lose their mind over the second home kit because it had more stripes. Facepalm. The whole thing about the stripes, that's just been funny to me. I don't know. Maybe there became this expectation about the 5 stripes because of the kit.
Yeah.
For me, it was about the crest. That was where the name came from for me because that was part of the idea of the crest.
Right.
Teams change the number of stripes on their kits all the time because you kind of have to. Otherwise, you're just going to have the same kit, and then people don't buy the new kit, and you need to have people buy the new kit.
Correct.
All about the cash. Ricky's yelling at me for being on board with FIFA 21. Man, I don't do
caps?
the mic.
Is it exclamation points or is it all caps?
No, it's just slander and meanness. To be fair, Ricky, I'm just kidding, dude.
Slander and meanness.
Slander and meanness down here. It says that EA only cares about the microtransactions. See, I don't get into that side of it, so that I don't really do much. I don't do a lot with the Ultimate Team stuff. Like I'll mess around with it a little bit, but I'm more about playing a season and doing the career mode stuff. That's what I've always been. So the rest of it, I just don't really get into as much. So what I'm looking for in it, I think it's better than it was last year. That's what I'm liking better in terms of the way it plays. There's still some things I'd like to see better for sure, but yeah. KFC says PES Pro Evolution is a good alternative. I like all the branded stuff. I know it's just branding, but that's probably why I've stayed on it. Ricky says it's not really that good either, so I haven't played it. I haven't played it in a long time, that's to be fair. And Football Manager, J-Dub's a whole different ball game, a whole different thing. And Football Manager's fun. I like it. But I like to be able to, at times, just play a game of FIFA and kick Cristiano Ronaldo when his team injures my players. That's kind of fun.
Kick him in the abs and see if they move.
Well, you don't get that much detail, unfortunately. Okay. They do prioritize the microtransactions, according to the folks. It can be better. Graphically, it'll always be on point, yes. It needs to be better. I think all of these sports games, you get into this balance of, how much do you change each year outside of the rosters changing? FIFA could probably use a little bit more of an overhaul. Although I do like the tweaks they made this year. I do. I'm not going to lie. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a huge gamer, so I'm not the market they're trying to hit. So my opinion really doesn't go very far here. It's just what I like to do occasionally when I get a chance to. That's all. Which isn't all that often. It wasn't during the season because I had it sitting there for a while, and now I was like, okay, I get to jump back into Napoli. Thank you, Juventus, for injuring my players. Angry. I'm going to win Serie A with Napoli, and I'm going to shove it in Juventus' face. That's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
We do need competition. I totally agree with that, Ricky.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Anything else we need to get into? No,
we're caught up on the Twitters.
Not competition among SDH people, because I'd get beat because I'm not that good at it. Competition in the game industry. Yeah. Just like Madden has had the football side forever and ever and ever. You need competition so things get better. Pro wrestling, you need a competitor so things get better.
Yes.
You need it for sure.
Uh-huh.
What else? Anything else we need to hit before we go?
No, I'm good. No, we're caught up on the Twitters, and like I said, I was quickly just brushing through the article with Mike Kelleher from the Charleston Battery in the Edinburgh Evening News.
Well, brag on it.
We're famous.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay. Mike Kelleher, one of our 1v1s with Kelleher involves the discussion about their relationship with Hibbs. And so the Edinburgh Evening News picked up that conversation and linked to the interview and quoted Kelleher on a couple of instances when it came to question and answer session with yours truly. So the Edinburgh Evening News is dropping Soccer Down Here references in interviews with the Charleston Battery about their new relationship. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I am in a very, very, very good mood.
You ain't Kim, brother.
John's very happy with that.
That's just cool. You sit there, you click. It's like, oh, on the Soccer Down Here podcast, Mike Kelleher. And I'm like, oh, and what paper was that? Oh, the Edinburgh Evening News. Okay, that's a new one. So it's Argentina, and now it's Scotland. Today.
Yes. John Nason also chimed in on the naming conventions, and he said that he heard, and this did happen, I heard it too, I have not heard this spread throughout the fan base, but Tony Annan on a 1v1 called Atlanta United to A2. That is another one. That has not become part of the public consciousness as of yet, but it is out there. So keep that one in mind. Maybe that sticks for next year. I don't know. The twos is kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that became would a colloquialism become, would that be the proper term here?
I think so.
Okay. So I believe that was a colloquialism before it became part of the canon with the naming. Because I think the team started using it from time to time in some of their social media messaging. So that one's become an official, unofficial one. A2 has not just yet, but maybe it will. We'll have to see.
Yeah. And Patrick Sullivan says, come for the slander and stay for the recrimination involving our show this morning.
That sounds about right. All right. Virtual producer Mateo will be back tomorrow, and he will try not to lose the sound when he wants to show you logos with Sasquatch. John will tell us about something else, or what are we going to do? Are we going to call that your thing?
Well, we're still looking for a title.
What did you call it this time?
Hey, I saw this.
Hey, I saw this.
Well, and also let me give you the suggestions that we had from Nick and Jarrett before we go, just as ideas.
Okay.
And so going back, and a lot of them had to do with acronyms for VAR and such. VAR and Twitch were the acronyms that were based with it. And so, of course, I have to go back in our timeline to get all of the abbreviations that
we
were there.
can save that for tomorrow. How about that?
Okay, I'll get there sooner or later. Probably get there like at 3:30 this afternoon.
Yeah, we're off the air. We're gone. We're gone.
I found them finally.
Okay, go ahead.
Nick suggested VAR, verifiable arguments required. We're going to VAR. And then Jarrett said TAR, Twitch approved rebuttals.
That might be another segment too.
Then Jarrett came up with persistent infringement, and John just asking.
Both of those are possible. So we are taking your suggestions for the name of John's new signature segment at 9:30. We are taking suggestions for topics for the signature segment.
Yes, we are, definitely.
You have to give those to at OSG Nelson on Twitter and follow him so he can try to make Twitter work. He doesn't do very good with it.
Check.
And, yeah, that's the show. So we will be back tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Mike Conti will be joining us. And possibly, hopefully, if we can tear him away, Kevin Egan will be joining us to get ready for Atleti and Barca and all on the La Liga front. So stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow. Help John out with his segment. And mucho platio.
Mucho platio.